Hello everybody and welcome back to another product review video. So I'm about to base up some Beastmen here, you see over here, and I thought I would take that opportunity to share a product review for something I've used quite a bit, and I've talked about it on a previous video, but I really wanted to show it sort of in action and give a full product review. As always, same rules apply. Anything that I'm reviewing I have used a lot, and I'm going to show it in action. And so what I'm going to review is these Vallejo sort of basing pastes, I'll call them. They probably have a proper name. I don't know what it's called, but there you go, basing paste. So specifically today we're going to talk about the dark earth and the gray pumice, whatever, which are my two favorites. These things are great. If you spend any time applying PVA glue to bases and like gluing down sand or something like that, this can just be a much easier way to go about that work. Because what these are is basically a basing grit of various textures. So if we can look inside there, you can kind of see, there we go, you can kind of see what that looks like. So that one's a sort of thin grit one. And then the gray pumice is the much thicker one. Okay, so you can see what that looks like. And the way you apply these is pretty straightforward. Like I just use one of my sticks aforementioned in a previous hobby cheating video. I just use a little punji stick. You just kind of take it, you just kind of slap it down there on the base. You just kind of slather it on. What's really interesting about especially the gray pumice is it looks like it's going to be all thick and pasty. It's really not. When it dries with this fantastic texture. So here you go. You can see how it looks when it's on there. It dries with this sort of fantastic rocky texture. It's amazing for building up a surface that will take a dry brush or a wash really well. You see you can build like ridges and stuff like that. I'll put like a little, you can really just get in there and have these big spikes in the center. Great for taking your cork bases and giving them some, some exciting texture and stuff like that. And it's obviously super easy to use. Like you just, pull it out of here, get a nice dollop, and then just spread it around. You don't need to worry about really how even it is. Doesn't matter. It'll just, be sort of natural mud or whatnot. Obviously if you want it to be more thin, you can keep it a little thinner toward the bottom. It spreads out nice and easy. And yeah, so there you go. Very quick, simple, easy. You can see how nice that spreads around. Okay, so you can see there's a couple there. So now let's do the other one. That's the gray pumice. I'm going to show you the other one in practice as well, so you can kind of see the difference. So if I pull this one out, first of all, you'll notice it's much more like mud texture on there. Okay, and if I do this one and kind of spread it around, you'll notice it will lay a lot more flat. So if we look at the difference there, oops, sorry, it's off camera. Okay, so if we look at the difference there, you can see how flat that one looks compared to how much that one comes out as being having a lot heavier texture to what you're getting out of the base. I use these both in differing ways. I use the mud one here if I want a more just sort of muddy, earthy base. So for example, with my, there we go. So for example, with my Bretonnian men-at-arms, who I wanted to be, slogging through the mud, I use this one. For my beastmen, who I mostly want walking around on rockier, more wastelandish terrain, I tend to use the gray pumice because it provides for a more sort of rocky, heavily pitted texture, almost like a badland or something like that. But you can also kind of mix them up on the base, and I've certainly done that a lot. You can just kind of spread both around, use both in different ways to show different types of earth texture. It's really pretty easy and straightforward. They mix up rather easily. Like here, I'll put some of both on this base right here, so we can see. You can see I got the mud on that side, and I'll just put some of this one on the other side, and we'll come back to that because what I'm going to show you here next is I'm going to let all of these dry and kind of show you what they look like once they're all dry. Now, one of the downsides to using these, I don't know if it's really a downside, but one of the realities, I guess I'll say, to using these is that you do have to let them time to dry, and they take a while. So, like, generally, I would say you leave them overnight. The thicker you put it on the base, the longer it's going to take to dry. If you spread, like, the brown, dark earth real thin, it'll be really dry and be able to take paint in a couple hours. If you really build up your gray pumice, you know, you've got some thick layers of it with some big spikes of the texture, then you're probably talking about overnight, more like the 8 to 10 hours to dry type of thing. So it's the kind of thing where you just, you know you're going to do it. You line up a bunch of bases like I have here. You get them all out there. You get them all ready. Now, if you're a smart person, unlike me, you'll do it before you finish the miniature, so you're not waiting. Unfortunately, I'm pretty dumb. And for some reason, even though I keep telling myself, just do the base first, I never do. Even in this case where I had them on, I was actually painting them on a different base. That's just how stupid I am. So, you can see there, we got some nice mix. I'm going to basically do the rest of these bases. You can see how they look once they've got that on there. We'll come back and you'll see how they dry, and then I'll actually even show you how they take paint, and we'll do a final rating on them. Okay? All right, we'll be back in a moment. All right, and welcome back. As you can see, we've got everything is dry, and so you can see how this. So this is the gray pumice, or pumice. I like saying pumice; it makes me laugh. You can see how this is hardened up, and you can see the like extreme texture that's left behind here. Like I can drag across that; it's not going anywhere, right? So that really solidifies. You can see how that creates this wonderful, really deep layers of texture in there. The dark earth, which is the smoother one, you can see here, this is a really nice example of both. You can see how here it creates a much finer surface. So if you're looking for a smoother, muddy ground, right, compared to this where it's just really thick and rocky, these big crystals in it. So I went ahead and I primed up some of the bases and dry brushed them here with just some flat earth and some flesh tone to create the mud. And you can see how well so this is the gray pumice, and you can see how well it picks up that dry brushing. Okay, there's another example there. You can see how well you can form these ridges here and how easily it just picks up that dry brush. And it'll take washes too, similarly, really well. This one's the flat earth right here, and you can see over on this side where it's much smoother. It's still taking the dry brush texture, right? So you still get a textured effect, but it's much, much, much different than something like that, right? So there you go. That's the dark earth and the gray pumice textures from Vallejo. I like them quite a bit. I like this method a lot better than say doing PVA glue and grit. I find it just lets you shape the base more, lets you get a more holistic build out of it, and you don't scrape sand off or anything like that. You have no issues where like, oh, somewhere down the line I'm scraping my base or moving it and little rocks or chunks are falling off. This, once it dries, it's solid, it's on there, it's not coming off. It's also really easy then if you need to push, like, if you need to put a model on this or push a model through or a pin through, you can do that really easy here as well. So overall, what do you get? You get, so these things are 200 milliliter containers. This one cost me $10 at my local game store. So they're usually in like $10, $12 range for 200 mils. This one you can see how much it's got left out of that 200 mils, so it's still probably got maybe a third of it left in there. And I've been using this now for 2 years or something ridiculous. Pretty darn near that. So they just last forever. You really, I've got to give them just a solid A rating for ease of doing nice, gritty texture, working with them, taking paint, cost effectiveness. Overall, I think they're an absolute stunning value for the money, And yeah, once again, couldn't recommend them enough. They are one of my absolute basing essentials. So I hope you found that useful, and I hope you have a great time making some fun, characterful, roughly textured bases in the future. Thanks for watching as always. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.